Before we look ahead at the Spurs in the postseason, let's look back at the Spurs during the regular season and then look ahead to the Spurs in the playoffs. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Spurs in Focus right here on YouTube, iTunes. What else you got? Spotify, Amazon Podcast. The list goes on and on. Go subscribe right now. We definitely appreciate it. Don't forget about the Substack. Spurs in Focus on Substack, completely free. And here our guest is going to buy the first 100 subscribers their subscription. Yeah, that's how generous he is. So we're going to be talking about your silver and black. But before we do that, my name is Jeff Garcia, longtime Spurs writer in San Antonio. I'm glad to have y'all back. As mentioned in the intro, we're going to be looking back at the Spurs regular season. Our favorite moments, disappointing moments, surprising things about this roster, players, coaches, the whole works. We'll look at that and then give our quick thoughts on the Spurs ahead of the postseason. We don't know who the Spurs are playing as of this recording. We'll find out very soon. The play-in tournament is about to start. And so much more on this episode of Spurs in Focus. Going to bring in our guest joining us via audio today. His name is Raul Dominguez of the AP Sports. Follow him on X at Dominguez5 right there. The key to the Spurs' successful playoff, Raul, has got to be Raul Dominguez at point guard, right?
It's got to be Wemby. Wemby. I think there's another. Wemby talked about. I think they asked him if he had another level, and he's like, "Yeah, of course." I think
wouldn't doubt it.
I think it's going to be kind of fun and terrifying to see Wemby at another level. So.
Yeah. We'll get to that in a few seconds. Again, he is with the AP Sports. You want to follow him on X at Dominguez5. Do that right now. Unfortunately, everybody, do again some scheduling conflicts. Audio only for this show today, but we should be back to video tomorrow. Let's dive into it, Raul. As I mentioned before, as of this recording, we don't know who the Spurs are going to play. Portland, Phoenix, they still got to settle their things. So the Spurs are kind of in a holding pattern. So before we find out who they'll play, let's look back at the regular season, 25-26, a season that many thought would be kind of, that's so decent. Vegas around 40-ish wins on the season. I projected about 45 wins on the season. Did not see a 60-plus win season on the horizon yet. Here we are. So, Raul, let's start it off. What do you think is the most surprising things about this team now that the regular season has concluded?
I'm not saying this to brag or anything, but I was on your podcast before the season started, and I said I thought that they could do it. They could finish top four.
Yeah,
predicted they'd be top four. So I kind of saw some of the success, but I guess the surprising thing is how well they did. I didn't see a top 2 seed. I figured. It'd probably be Oklahoma City, Denver. Right. I didn't think, I thought that they'd, be battling for that 4 spot coming to the end of the season. So, and they had the number 2 seed locked for quite a while now.
Right.
I think that's probably the surprising thing is how well they did and how consistent they were. I think they didn't lose. I think they didn't have a 3-game losing streak the whole season, which is something that they battled over the last 2-3 years, kind of those long winning streaks or losing streaks rather. And it seemed like they were having difficulty winning multiple games in a row. I think it was last year, maybe the year before, where they were having trouble winning more than 2 games in a row. So I think the surprising thing is just their consistency, just how well they were able to play well for long stretches of time, especially, the last couple of months of the season. I think that was probably maybe the biggest surprise is how well they just sort of gelled and locked in. And, especially, everyone talks about their inexperience, but they played like a veteran team, just knowing, especially with teams that, that they supposedly should beat, for them to get to stay locked in and beat those teams and beat them usually pretty, usually have a dominant performance against them. So I think that's the most surprising, just kind of the consistency and their sustained success.
Yeah, you look at some of the numbers throughout the regular season. They were consistently top 10 in defensive rating, top 10 offensive rating. Rebounding was high. They were pretty consistent throughout the entire year. One of the most surprising things for me, though, Raul, is the play of Carter Bryant. I did not see this coming. I like he said after the final game of the regular season, I thought he'll be in the G League. I really believe that. At that time, I was thinking, well, Sochan is still here. How's he going to get minutes over Sochan? He's been there, done that with this team. But yet you saw signs early in the season that Mitch and the coaching staff had faith in him, where he was getting minutes over Sochan. He was getting the bulk of the minutes and in key situations. But yet, he never went to the G League. He made an impact from the start of the season, and then his impact just grew tremendously to wrap up the season. What a find in the draft. I mean, this is the 3-and-D guy they wanted. And if he's just barely scratching the surface in his rookie season, well, imagine in his sophomore, third year, 4 year. I mean, this guy is a gem. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, huge kudos and to Mitch Johnson and staff, because early on, he was struggling with this 3-pointer. He kept dropping the ball in the dunks, and it became kind of a not a running joke, but everyone was teasing him about.
I remember that,
the fact that he was having trouble dunking because every time he went up for a dunk, he would lose the ball or just have it stripped. And but Mitch and the staff, they believed in him and they saw something, and they just had him play short runs.
Mm-hmm.
Minutes kept getting bigger and bigger, and you saw his confidence. I mean, this last game, he was just, him driving it into the lane and giving Jokic shoulder bump to create some space and then dunking on him. Yeah. That just, to me, that just said everything about how confident he has become, because he wouldn't have done that at the beginning of the year. Beginning of the year, he would have, he maybe would have taken an outside shot or maybe stopped in the lane and tried to do a little pop, but just his confidence, offensively and then defensively as well. He's like you're saying, I thought he'd spend more time in the G League.
Me too. Yeah.
So I think he was maybe there, maybe a game or two, maybe this season.
Mm-hmm.
But they put him into the rotation, pretty early. And again, his minutes just increased as the year went by. But they saw something and they developed it. They increased his confidence, and I think he's got the potential to have a huge postseason. Just because he does all the little things, which is what you need to win the playoffs.
Mitch Johnson did say that Carter Bryant will get playing time in the playoffs. How much playing time remains to be seen, but that should give young Carter Bryant some confidence that the coaching staff has that type of faith in him to put him in a situation where, most of these guys don't have playoff experience. This guy especially. So yeah, I mean, you just got to tip your cap to him. Let's go look at some of the numbers. This is how he wrapped up the season, Raul. 9.4 points per game in the last 5 games, 3.6 rebounds, 2.4 assists in 19 minutes. He was a plus 4.4 for the Spurs during the final 5 games of the regular season. True shooting percentage, 76%. So that's really, really good. Overall, you look at his play and his impact, he's doing this at such an early age. I think he's still a teenager, right? He's still a kid. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. And and he was, they also had him guard, Jokic, on a lot of possessions, during the Denver game. And, I thought he did a really good job with Jokic. Just sort of, it just seemed like at times that Jokic was just sort of like bothered by him. Not so much like, where he threw him off his game, but someone seemed like he was being a pest to him, kind of like, oh God, here he comes again. So, of course, Jokic still did well, but just you could see it maybe see him kind of get under his skin a little bit, and that's something that that only happens when the defender is really trying to impose their will on another player. So, so he showed that he's capable of guarding. Big man, just in case, they Spurs run with a smaller lineup. You can bring him in here and maybe guard a center or a power forward, even with Wemby on the court, if besides they want to have two big men in there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, overall, he's been, for me, one of the most surprising aspects of this season, just how quickly he developed. He even said after the game versus Denver, Raul, you were there, when he said, my superpower is growing fast, developing quick. Yeah. So it fits well with a nerdiness here on the Spurs in Focus. So yeah, I wish Raul's superpower is that he can actually levitate things. That's how he's able to stop.
Yeah, just I can throw up a bad 3-pointer. So
there you go. Then you adjust it with mind, like Jean Grey from X-Men. All right, there's many surprising things about this team. You can, as we pointed out, to their exceptional play. You mentioned them being the top 4, and being up top 2. For me, it was Carter Bryant, but there were a few disappointing things. about this season. And not too many. There really wasn't. You really can't nitpick a 62-win season. But if you could, Raul, was there anything disappointing for you about this Spurs season?
I guess disappointing thing for me was, like when I had said that I thought the Spurs would be top four, that they could, I predicted they would finish top four in the West. The big reason why I said that is just because of their athleticism and especially defensively. I thought that they were going to have a great defensive team, which they did. But I also thought that a big part of that was going to be Jeremy Sochan. That's probably maybe the disappointing thing is, the fact that Jeremy's not with the team and didn't have a bigger role. And I don't, obviously the results bear out, what the Spurs coaching staff, saw or didn't see. But I really thought that Jeremy was going to be, starting alongside Wemby and helping him lock down players. But that's probably the one disappointing thing is, because you see Keldon and Devin and Julian, getting a reward after, so many bad seasons and all the work they put in now. They're bearing the fruit of that, all that hard work. To see Jeremy, who's good friends with the entire team, to see him not be a part of that is kind of disappointing. I feel bad for Jeremy, and obviously, I thought he was a great talent, but he just didn't fit what the Spurs were looking for and needing. So that's probably the biggest disappointment. Just the fact that he's not enjoying this, and also the fact that he didn't contribute. Kind of like the way that I thought he was.
Yeah, well, he definitely playing on the playoff team right now with the Knicks, so he'll be making his first postseason appearance just on the Eastern Conference side. But nevertheless, that was disappointing. Here's a guy that's been there, done that with the team in recent years. In this new chapter, helped establish the new chapter in Spurs franchise history, and it did not work out. It kind of goes back to one of my surprising things. It was Carter Bryant. I mean, this kid is just oozing with talent. Dare I say, Carter Bryant is what they thought Sochan would be. I think that's what it was. And look, they're not for the lack of trying. They tried the point guard spot. We all know what happened there. Credit to Sochan. He did have that moment during the season when he was a Spur where he had like 3 or 4 games straight where he was just like impressing everybody, the rebounding, the scoring, and then back to the bench, and Carter Bryant goes back in. So, that definitely was one of the
Subscribe to Spurs in Focus. Resistance is futile.
So it didn't work out with Sochan. For me, it was actually at the waiver wire. One of the disappointing things I thought the Spurs would do would look for better three-point shooting, just better depth at the shooting spot. No knock on Mason Plumlee. That's good backup for the big man, number one in the middle. But I really thought they would chase a lethal or at least a sniper in the waiver wire, or at least around the trade deadline. And they didn't, Raul. Do you think that was a good move or bad move looking back? They did not get a sniper.
I can't remember who was available. I don't think there was anyone to me that really stands out. I think the big thing was with them is just, they kind of saw the way the team was building because, Spurs shot the three-pointer well down the stretch. Julian, Keldon, Castle, Harper's three-point shot is been phenomenal. I think he doesn't get enough credit for his three-point shooting. He's really developed that aspect of his game. Castle, seems like Castle can hit a three-pointer in the clutch situations. De'Aaron's, kind of off and on, but he's capable of hitting the three. So I think it was probably more so that I think they didn't see anyone who would be able to take away any minutes from, say, a Harrison Barnes or a Carter Bryant or someone like that. So, and obviously, not Keldon. Keldon needs his minutes, and the Spurs need his minutes as well. So, so I think that maybe had more to do with it. I think the Spurs have really improved their three-point shooting, and I think they've improved their three-point shooting in the fact that they don't seem to take as many. And Denver game, that they kind of look like they regressed a little bit and were taking just a lot of three-point shots, and there weren't really so much good shots.
Right.
But I think for the most part, or actually, I think especially like the last 2 months of the season, I thought they did a great job just sort of with their three-point shooting and not relying on that three-point.
Ha! Let's fight! Bring it on! Take this! Not enough!
Shot.
Yeah, you look at how they ended the season. Middle of the pack, 14th team ranking in the NBA at 35% shooting from the three line. So it's not horrific. I just my worry, Raul, is that this may come back to bite them in the postseason.
Yeah.
That's my biggest worry, because let's just pretend like they draw Phoenix. Well, enough said. Phoenix can shoot the lights out. Can Spurs match that? So we'll definitely see if this is going to be an issue for the Spurs in the postseason. But yeah, that was a little disappointing for me. I really, really thought they would come and get some sort of help in that department. But you're right. To their credit, they did get better throughout the regular season, because remember, Raul, to start the season, they were near the bottom.
Yeah,
definitely, almost in the 20th ranks when it comes to 3-point shooting. Now, at the end of the day, as mentioned, they did go up to the 14th in the NBA, so that's good. And you look at the last 5 games before they closed out the season. If I have it here, I'll pull it up here. Yeah, look at their true shooting percentage, not just overall shooting from 3, inside 2, paint, everything. 60%, good for 13th in the NBA. So they did get better in their last 5. But overall, they were just. I think they feel confident enough that they can hit threes, just maybe not as the volume as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And look, when you got Victor there, do you really need that much offensive threat? I mean, the Spurs team oozes offensive threat, not just from Victor, but from everybody. So I think they'll be okay. But again, I'm having that in the back of my mind, is their lack of 3-point shooting, at least a sniper. No, I'm not trying to disparage Julian Champagny. He is really, really good. But I wish they did just a little bit more help in that department. We're talking with Raul Dominguez of the AP Sports. He's on X at Dominguez5. Give him a follow right now. And we're looking back at the Spurs regular season before we look ahead at the postseason the Spurs have on Sunday. Yeah, Sunday is the day. Circle your calendar, Spurs fans. That's the day where the Spurs get back in action, hosting Game 1, the Western Conference opening series. Portland or Phoenix, we shall see. Raul, let's talk about Mitch Johnson in his first year. Looking back at his, I guess, officially, no more interim, just official head coach season. For me, I have A+ on his report card. What do you think?
Yeah, Mitch was someone that, I don't know exactly what it was, but just sort of the early press conferences and the early games, there was just something about him, just sort of his mm-hmm. His demeanor, the way he was coaching, his approach to the game. That, I said at the time, if Mitch wasn't, if Pop came back, which we were all hoping he would, mm-hmm. I said, Mitch was going to get a head. If he didn't get it here, he was going to get a head coaching job, really soon, because I thought he was going to be a hell of a coach. And I even said on a previous podcast where I thought he was going to wind up winning mm-hmm. Coach of the Year, and that was before the season. There's just something about Mitch. Just his approach to the game. He has a very high basketball IQ.
That he does,
and he does a great job. People talk about Pop and his relationships with his players. Mitch seems to have that same relationship, but it's kind of it's like two sides of the same coin with him and Pop. They both have great relationships, but they have kind of different ways of doing it. And the players love him. The players, will run through walls for him. And I think early on he was just sort of kind of feeling out the rotations and, who to play and stuff. And I know he got a lot of grief for this and that, and there were times where he would just let he wouldn't call a timeout. He'd let a run continue, or, wouldn't call a timeout, let them run a play at the end of the game without calling a timeout to draw it out. And I know he got a lot of flack for that, but you could see what he was trying to do. He was trying to empower the players, to fix it on their own on the court, to rely on themselves on the court, and it's paid off. I mean, you look at the Spurs, the last couple of months, their end game, the way they're able to close out games, the way they're able to stop runs. So I think Mitch and especially his staff as well have done a tremendous job. Like the one thing that worries me, and should worry Spurs fans, is I don't think Sean Sweeney's going to be here for long.
I agree with you on that for sure.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Milwaukee's going to come calling. That they'll at least interview him, and so the job that he's done and the job he did in Dallas, He's going to be another tremendous head coach. So, he may be part of, sort of that Pop Mitch Johnson coaching tree. So, but yeah, no, I give Mitch a grade of A for his job this season.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, what he's done this past season has just been incredible, and getting this young team to stay stable. Remember the Spurs, as great as their record was, everybody, they did remember that moment kind of mid-season-ish where they just hit a wall, where they couldn't score at all. Their defense was clinging on to wins, and he got them through that rut. And I also like the fact that throughout the season, if you paid close attention to his post-game chats, whenever the team did lose, he did take ownership. And there was times he's like, well, we didn't have a good first half. That was on me. Maybe X, Y, and Z, I should have done this. So he took ownership, as well as he gave praise to the players. And even to the bitter end, he said that he gave credit to the team for having the 62 wins. So he's doing everything. He's pressing the right buttons. He's making bold moves. We highlighted one earlier, Raul, Carter Bryant versus Sochan. He went with a rookie. I mean, that's a bold move. I don't think Pop would have done that personally. I think Pop would have stuck to the veteran in this case, which would have been Sochan. But he went with a rookie, and that's great. He lets them play through their struggles. That's good. And he does get into the players. I mean, from Dylan Harper to Carter Bryant, they said Mitch can get fired up behind the scenes. But even you see demeanor during game, on the bench, in the sidelines, you rarely see him just light into a player. Rarely did you see that. He lets them know. You definitely see he has that Mitch Johnson stare, where you get in trouble with your parents and they just look at you. You're like, oh, what did I do? I think he's excellent at communicating with them. Bang up job, and he's outshining other names that could have had his job. Jenkins, Mike Malone, those are people out there. Becky Hammond, they were out there available. But here's a guy with 0 NBA head coaching experience. I guess the interim season. But way to go. He guided this team to a phenomenal record. We'll see what they do in the postseason. All right, Raul, what do you think is the most underrated thing about this team from this past season?
Mitch touched on it during a press conference. I think it was before the Denver game when they asked him about the season, and he talked about the first things he talked about is sort of their team's unselfishness, and the way they're selfless. He talked about how Harrison Barnes going to the bench. He talked about Keldon Johnson, how he's embraced that 6-man role. He talked about Victor and how Victor obviously wanted to start. Victor obviously wanted to, play a lot of minutes, when he was injured and, coming up injuries and stuff, but Victor still, came off the bench, did a tremendous job when he came off the bench. He didn't complain. He did, what the Spurs coaches and medical staff, said he should do. And then he also talked about as far as trying to think, he talked about Luke Cornett and the job that he's done and how, Luke came off the bench to start when Victor was injured and how he played, 40 minutes. And I think it was the overtime game in New Orleans, which they won. And he talked about how they needed those 40 minutes, but he talked about how they had to sit Luke out for the next game or two because they kind of wore him down. But Luke was still out there, for the New Orleans game, given it was all playing more minutes than he was used to, doing whatever it took for the team, whatever the team needed. And I think that's the big thing is just their the way they really are a team, the camaraderie, the fact that they don't care. Look at De'Aaron. De'Aaron could be averaging, between 20 and 30 points a game, but he's dialed back. He's allowed Dylan to evolve. He's allowed Castle to evolve. He's allowed Victor to be, the tremendous offensive threat that he is. So I think that's a big thing with the Spurs. I think people see that, but I don't think people realize the extent of it where, they don't care who has the most points. They don't care who gets the recognition. They just enjoy playing, playing alongside each other. And you see it also like when they're on the bench. I mean, how crazy they go when someone gets dunked. I mean, when Carter Bryant had the dunk on Jokic, I mean, picture. I think was probably the most excited of anyone in the entire arena. When it happened. So, so just that bond that they have, and that's something that I think teams talk about, that teams want to have. But what the Spurs have seems, it seems very genuine, and that's a big thing. That's going to help them, I think, in the postseason. That just the fact that they're willing to do whatever it takes for the team to succeed.
I'm with you. Yeah. The sharing the ball, confidence in one another. Even Carter Bryant, the last game of the season, what did he say? Like when he was making a joke. Well, I guess it wasn't a joke, but he said his superpower was growth. But he said that his teammates allow him to make mistakes. That he understands that's going to happen. So they definitely have that bond and that togetherness. For me, Raul, and I think this didn't really get highlighted enough during the regular season. Did you know the Spurs finished 5th in the NBA in turnover percentage, a mere 13.5? They took care of the ball pretty well. Yeah.
I didn't know that because early in the season they were struggling with turnovers. So I didn't. Now that you mention it, I'm thinking their turnover was really down. But this is supposed to be an inexperienced team. You had a rookie and a second-year player. Handling the ball for the most part. And Bryant, and Castle and Harper. So that's amazing.
Well, it gets even better, Raul. In their last 5 games, they were 3rd in the NBA in turnover percentage at 11.8. So I think that doesn't get highlighted enough. I think that's one of the most underrated things about this team is throughout the season, and especially to wrap up the season, they did rarely turn the ball over. Even to take a look at the last 10 games, they were 6th in the NBA in turnover percentage at 12.9. So, really valuing the ball, keeping mistakes at a minimal. And the proof is in the pudding. Look at their record. Look at their wins. They rarely shot themselves in the foot with turnovers. Yes, they did have their games where it was just they coughing the ball up, but that was far and few between. For me, turnover percentage so low throughout the season. Again, a credit to Mitch, a credit to the team having trusting and confidence in one another. Mitch, allowing them to, try things, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, let's move on. But nevertheless, keeping that ball, valuing the ball, that's something the Spurs really did well throughout the season. My most underrated thing about this Spurs team this season. Raul, again, a 62-win season, a lot of highs, very low lows. There really wasn't that many. I guess maybe the lowest one for me. Well, we'll get into that in a bit. But what do you think is your most memorable moment of the 25-26 Spurs regular season?
Well, that's a tough one. I'm trying to think. Wemby's obviously at the center
for sure.
A lot of the highlights. I would say I'm trying to remember exactly how it went. So the 25-point comeback against the Clippers was just incredible. The fact that they didn't give up and were able to come back, and the Clippers were a hot team.
Yeah.
I mean, they finished to close the season. I think with after starting the season really poorly, I think they finished like 37 and 19 or something. So they were in the midst of a really hot run when the Spurs came back and beat them. And they had Kawhi, and they had it wasn't like they were depleted. But I'm trying to remember, was that the game when Wemby got really emotional?
Yeah, yes, that's when he was crying. Yes, it was the Clippers game. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that was probably the highlight for me. Just seeing how this team had evolved from being a team that especially the last couple of seasons where they would build these big leads and then lose it and then not be able to come back. To see them come back from that large of a deficit and to beat a quality team, and then to see the emotion that Wemby had. So. I know some people gave him some grief. Why does he care about a regular season game? The fact that he does care about a regular season game should the NBA and his fans should be celebrating, because Wemby showed in the All-Star game as well, that he's out there to compete. He's out there to win. He doesn't care if it's a regular season game. He doesn't care if it's an All-Star game. He doesn't care if it's chess. He doesn't care if it's
it's a chess.
Table tennis, whatever. Like, Wemby wants to win. He's competitive, and He's got no friends. Once they put the ball in the air for tip off, he doesn't have any friends on the court. So that was probably the highlight of the year, just to see the team's growth and to see how much they evolved from the team that kept blowing leads, in years past to just sort of this monster that they had become.
Yeah, you took my number one pick was that game versus the Clippers. It was just phenomenal. The atmosphere was electric. I gotta be honest with you, I cashed in. I was like, okay, this game's over. This game's over. There's no way this team is gonna come back from 25, and they did. And I guess for me, it kind of ties into what I had in my number 2 on my list. Was not necessarily a play or a game or a moment. It was more like how they evolved. Remember the first half of the season? What was it? If they were down at halftime, they were not going to come back. You remember that? It was they were down at halftime. They were not going to win. The record was like crazy against the Spurs. Like they were like 5 and something. It was wild. But to see them learn and grow together, that was more of the memorable things for me. To see at one time this Spurs team couldn't get out of a deficit. You fast forward to near the end of the season, and they could. At one point, they couldn't get out of a deficit coming out of halftime, and now they can. And also, too, is that never count them out. I learned that pretty quickly. Oh, they're going to Denver. They're not going to beat Denver in their gym. This is a young squad, and they go beat them. At that time, Orlando was hot. Oh, they're going to go to Orlando. Orlando's going to wax them. Boncaro and the crew, and the Spurs beat them. What? You're going to tell me they're going to go to Oklahoma City and beat the Thunder not once, not twice, not 3, but 4 times out of 5? I would have said whatever. Just to see, and they do, just to see them develop and grow and mature. That's just awesome. And my cap tips to this guy again, Mitch Johnson, for him to get this team from some of their struggles, correct it, and move on. And I love that about this young team. We saw them grow up before our eyes this season. This young team grew up before our eyes. Raul, before we can look ahead at the postseason, real quickly, one of my more, I guess, disappointing moments of the season was losing back-to-back to the Golden State Warriors. And that it wasn't the fact they lost. It was like how they lost. And Steph Curry just went nuclear on them twice in a row. It was like 50 points in one game and like 40 something the next game. Yeah, those games stung because they don't have Jimmy Butler. This is an old team. Draymond. How much gas is there left in the tank? And then boom, Curry goes Curry and he destroys them. So that was perhaps one of my more disappointing games. And it happened in San Antonio too, Raul. Come on. So that kind of sucks. But you know what, Raul? And overall, it was a great season. Again, 60+ wins. I mean, how much can you nitpick? This is a phenomenal team. They're poised to have a deep run in the postseason. Steph Castle said their goal is to have a long run in the postseason following the conclusion of the regular season. So here we are, Raul. Again, we don't know who the Spurs are going to play as of this recording. Could be Portland, could be Phoenix. We don't know yet. But what are you looking forward to the most this postseason?
I think just kind of seeing their continued growth. Like like I said that I thought that the Spurs could do well and finish top 4, but I also said that I wasn't sure. I've seen young teams do that where they have a great regular season and put a lot of their focus into the regular season, and then when it comes to the postseason, don't do well. I think Oklahoma City before they won the championship. I think they got knocked out in the first round. I think a few years back. But you've seen that where a young team, does really well in the regular season, and come postseason, their inexperience sort of catches up with them. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they do in the postseason. How Victor does. I mean, Victor just loves to play, in sort of the intensity of the spotlight, as far as
absolutely
national TV game. I mean, you see what he did in the gold medal game, All-Star game. You saw what he did. He loves that sort of being in those pressure situations. So I'm looking forward to see how he does. And then I think the other thing is, not to discount what they could possibly do this season. The fact of the matter is, they are ahead of schedule. I mean, no one saw
big time.
No one saw us coming. So all whatever experience, whatever success they have this postseason is going to pay huge dividends down the stretch. I mean, you look at Oklahoma City, the way they're able to build and wind up winning, their championship last year, and then you look at the Spurs, when the Spurs were having their runs, they had a little bit of playoff success, and then they when they finally got through, they got that experience and they knew exactly what it was, it took to win an NBA championship, and so then they wound up winning 4 more. So I think that's the big thing. It's just kind of seeing their growth and also realizing that this is going to be just great experience and great knowledge for future runs, because I think the Spurs are going to have another long run like they did with the Big Three.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you there. I think this team is special. Yeah, and also too, you got to maximize it now, because unlike the Big Three era, at least maybe towards the end, but in this age of NBA and the financial side of things, teams nowadays really can't afford to overspend on top tier talent. Spurs are one of the smaller markets. They can't compete with New York or LA, Chicago. You know where I'm going with this. So I think they got to maximize this window right now while they're young and still on contract friendly, because that's one of the dark. If there is a dark cloud in all this, it's the financial side of the NBA, and we'll see how they navigate that. But as far as the here and now, for me, Raul, what I'm looking forward to the most is just for 2 guys. Start off with the first guy, Keldon Johnson, for them to finally get into the postseason after being with this team during the lows of the franchise. Was it 6 years of missed playoffs?
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, was the same guy, Keldon Johnson, same guy you saw on that podium, win or lose, 20-win seasons, 30-win seasons. He was still positive, and I'm glad that he's going to get his first taste of NBA playoff experience. I think it's well deserved. Hopefully he can show out, and I have no doubt he will. And also for this guy, Devin Vassell, same situation. Been with the Spurs during the depths and the lows of the franchise during this transition, but yet kept the chin up, put his best foot forward on the court, try to make this team competitive, and yet here he is. He's a key player for the Spurs in their postseason run. So I'm excited for Keldon and Devin. What about you?
Yeah, no, those are great points. Yeah, and I think people sort of see how Keldon and Devin are, but I think people don't quite fully realize, what they've helped build here. The hard work they put in, the camaraderie. I mean, Keldon is the glue for this team. On the court and off the court. I don't know that Keldon's ever, met anyone that didn't, become like a friend or an admirer.
You're right.
Immediately, and he's. Whether you're a rookie or a veteran, they came in, like Mason Plumlee or Carter Bryant and Dylan when they first came in, like he welcomes everybody, like they become like family with him. So that's a big thing for the chemistry that they have. So just piggybacking up on what you said, having those 2 guys, and then Devin as well. Devin's a tremendous guy. I mean, Devin's like one of the nicest guys I've ever met. His mom and his dad are always at the games, cheering for him, and he loves that sort of family atmosphere, and the way he's worked hard through injuries.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you remember, he was having a tough time staying healthy.
That. Yeah, good point.
And then now he's, but even then he's continued to put the work in. So you're right. Seeing them, when they get into the games and stuff, it's going to be a different atmosphere to sort of have them rewarded for all those years where it seemed like nothing went right with the Spurs for them to finally get that taste of the postseason. That's going to be special.
Mm-hmm. Remember during those lean years, this guy, Devin Vassell, he was always, he's their best trading chip. He's their best trading. You're going to trade him and Keldon. Those 2 guys, you can trade them. And yet they stuck with them. And here they are helping the team into the postseason. All right, Raul, man, God, what a season. What a season. Cannot wait for the postseason. It's right around the corner. Man, let me get a little taste from you first. Who would you rather see, Portland or Phoenix?
I think most fans would say Portland because they feel like Spurs are better. They're a better matchup for the Spurs. But I would love to see them play Phoenix. I think that would be a really intense playoff series. And Dylan Brooks is on the record. I forgot there was a podcast or an interview where he talked about how he shut down Victor and that he is shutting down Victor.
Oh, that was Dylan Brooks, right? Yeah,
Dylan Brooks. Yeah, so I would love to see Victor play against him, and
that'd be great.
I think Victor's adapted more to done a better job adapting. He's excelling against sort of the smaller players that try and bully him. So I'd love to see them go against them. Obviously, you have Dylan and you have Devin Booker. So obviously it'd be a tough matchup, but that would be a fun series, and it would be. I think one of the big reasons is, you always want to have sort of a villain in the playoffs, and I think
Dylan got one.
Dylan Brooks definitely fits that bill for all the entire NBA. And I love Dylan Brooks' game. Is like if he was on the Spurs, people would love him. Just his intensity, the way he plays. But when he's playing against you, people love to hate him. So I think he would bring. That would be just a tremendous opening series.
I'm with you right there. All right. It's time to get a little nerdy, everybody. I know, brace yourself. I'm going to get nerdy with Raul right here. Nerd! All right. We did not have a nerd segment for yesterday's show, Raul. Our guest, Matt Guzman, he was actually on the road driving back to Austin. So I said, you know what? Let's just skip it. Keep your eyes on the road. Yeah, you're driving. We'll skip it. We got your takes in, and we'll move on. So here we are, Raul. So one of the more anticipated movies this summer is Masters of the Universe, He-Man. It's coming back. The trailers have been just fire. I mean, just insanely good. Are you looking forward to that movie? Is that a ticket you're going to go buy and check it out in the theater?
Yeah, I think I will. Honestly, I wasn't sure because it seems like past. I'm trying to remember. I think there was one or two Master of the Universe movies before.
It was with Dolph Lundgren and Langella.
Yeah, there you go. It just seemed like when they did that or they did other sort of takes on it, it was always kind of hokey. I don't think they really have the respect for it. They kind of took it as like, like almost like a toy or whatever. I think one of the best parts of, I guess, us nerds having grown up and have money to spend now, that they're starting to sort of, do a better job, with like Mortal Kombat, Master of the Universe, Transformers, like where they're, realizing, hey, we got something here. So they're putting the money, they're putting the CGI, the actors, the script. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping that they do it justice because, Master of the Universe was a great cartoon, back in the day, it was, that and the Thundercats were two of my favorites. So, I'm looking forward to it. I won't watch it like the opening weekend. Like when it comes to the Marvel movies, I'm there, the Thursday night that they open. But Masters of the Universe, I'll probably see it like maybe the second weekend. I'll probably wait and see kind of what the reviews and such are.
Absolutely. Yeah. What I like about it too is, do you remember that movie Bumblebee? And remember how the movie started with the war on Cybertron? Mm-hmm. That they all look, the characters look like their true, cartoon selves. Yeah. Not the skeleton looking ones like Bay did. Well, that director, Bumblebee, is the same director for this movie. I think he's in tune with what the fans want, and I think he nailed it. I mean, okay, look, only Raul can look like real He-Man. All right, he's like the only guy in the world that looks like just like cartoon He-Man, like all jacked and By the way, you ever notice why was that He-Man intro like where He-Man was allowed to punch the fans in the face? Like that's literally what he does. He punches the fans in the face when you tune in, but. But look, like I said, outside of Raul, there's no physically human could. I guess maybe in his day, Arnie could have done it. But
I think Keldon Johnson would be a perfect He-Man.
Keldon, there you go. Yeah, give him the battle chest armor and put the little H on him. But so I like the look of the characters. I mean, for me, what blew my mind was the look of Trapjaw. The villain, how he looked just like the cartoon. And then what did you land on Jared Leto's voice as Skeletor? You want to get your thoughts on that. Did you like it?
Yeah, I don't know. Like Jared Leto's like one of those guys where I don't know. I'm just sort of, off and on with him. Like, some stuff that he's great in, some stuff where I just feel like he was miscast. So I don't know. I'm still kind of debating that one. But, Morbius, I didn't really like it, but I don't know if that was so much his fault or just more so the script. But, I'm kind of taking a wait and see approach on Leto. So. Yeah.
I when I heard the voice when they revealed Leto's voice, I didn't mind it. It's a lot darker, a little more ominous versus the obviously the 80s cartoon. There was a high pitched, squealy kind of jokey tone. Langella brought more of a theatrical Broadway performance of it. Mark Hamill, he did y'all have never seen the Netflix Master Universe cartoons. You go see it. It is really, really good. But Mark Hamill, he did a lot of homages to Langella and the previous guys, and still keeping that high pitchy voice somewhat. But I like Leto's take. It was a little more, like I said, ominous, darker, a little more terrifying, and I liked it. I know a lot of fans are split on that, but even just his look too, he looks like Skeletor. We're finally getting blue skin Skeletor, because remember in the 90s, the late 80s, 90s movie with Dolph Lundgren and Langella, he was bleach white. It was not blue. So we're getting that look, and just overall, I think it's a movie that's gonna be hyped. I think there's people, family members of mine, they're like, when does it come out? When does it come out? When does it come out? I'm like, I don't know. I hope so. I hope it comes out like tomorrow. Surprise everybody, fake out in screens tomorrow, but that ain't gonna happen. We gotta wait till June, I think. But overall, I think that's gonna be one of the hotter movie tickets to get this summer. Just take it easy on the bench press, Raul, man. You're getting too jacked there like He-Man.
Yeah.
Getting too jacked.
Like, so
do you remember do you ever remember what was your all-time bench, if you could remember? Do you know offhand?
I don't know, man. Is it
how many plays? How many 45 plays did you get on there? 2, 3?
I don't think it was ever that much. I had a part in my back when I was lifting, so I tended to do less than I could. So
remember, Ron, did you say you used to wrestle at one point? Why do I remember that?
No, I just enjoy wrestling, watching wrestling.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you wrestled in like high school or something like that.
Yeah, no.
By the way, Raul's no shrimp, everybody. Let me tell you that, man. Raul looks like he can pack a punch. So I stay away from him. I try not to piss him off when I do run into him. I'm like, oh, how you doing, Raul? Sir, may I get you some water, sir? Would you like a tap water or ice cold water?
No, that's you. I mean, you're pretty jacked, so. We both stay away from Keldon, though, because I've seen Keldon wrestle some of the assistant coaches and stuff. And Keldon is like, heard that joke about someone made a joke about Mike Tyson, how he punched him as kind of just joking around, and it's like, I don't want to be around Mike because when he jokes, he hurts, and that's I think that's Keldon. When Keldon wrestles, it was like he kind of hurts people by accident, just joking around and wrestling with them.
Yeah, he's like that, like friendly giant that doesn't know his own strength. Oh man, I hurt you or something like that. But no. The reason why I work out so much, Raul, because I do not like getting older. I just don't like it. I don't like it. I mean, it's bad enough, Raul, that everybody. I do wear glasses, but I don't wear them often because I don't really need them. I just need them more for long distance. But Raul, new news. I got to go back to the eye doctor in the month to get full on glasses now. Father Time is kicking my ass now.
Yeah. I need glasses as well, but I can't find the right prescription because I need the trifocals or bifocals or whatever it is. And,
they're gonna put the Hubble telescope lenses on mine. That's what they're gonna do. That's how much you need. He is Raul Dominguez of the AP Sports. He's on X at Dominguez Cinco. Raul, brag about what you got coming for all Spurs fans.
Just kind of waiting on the Spurs playoffs, but keep an eye out for the Associated Press. Tim Reynolds and the great AP staff are putting together this great package leading up to the play-in tournament. Just a lot of different stories from a lot of the different NBA cities. Tim Reynolds, the great writer based out of Miami, is writing some has budgeted some great stories coming out on individual players, on teams, on scenarios, the previews of the play-in matchup. So Associated Press has a tremendous package coming up this week as far as stories. So definitely keep an eye out for that. I know that you can click on a link to subscribe to, get notifications for their NBA stories. So I would definitely do that. I mean, Associated Press has some great writers, Tim Reynolds, Brian Mahoney, Ben Knuckles, Cliff Blunt. So, definitely keep an eye on what the AP has coming.
But more importantly, everybody, you want to follow Raul Dominguez. He's such a team. He's such a team player there at the AP. But give him some love. Again, he's at Dominguez Cinco. He's gonna have some articles for you guys. Go check him out. Give him a follow. ASAP. Raul, thank you again for taking time out of your schedule to join us here at Spurs in Focus. We appreciate it, buddy.
All right, thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.
All right, yeah, and thank you for taking it easy on me whenever we do arm wrestling. I appreciate that too. Right. Making me look like I'm gonna win, and bro is just laughing at me in my face. Everybody else, we thank y'all for making Spurs in Focus your first listen each and every day. Seriously, come here, only spot for all things silver and black. Subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. We're now on Amazon Podcast. Bro, we even have a YouTube music station. Seriously, it's how crazy it is. Yeah, so go check it out. Don't forget, Spurs in Focus Substack, completely free. As a matter of fact, Raul's buying the first 100 subscribers, their subscriptions right now. So if you're one of those first 100, just hit subscribe and the bill goes right to Raul. And he got your back. He's got your back. Again, Spurs in Focus on Substack. Go follow it and subscribe to it right now. We'll be back tomorrow as the Spurs are getting ready for the postseason. So for Mr. Raul He-Man Dominguez, I am Jeff Garcia, and now you're in focus with Spurs in Focus.